Cool. Here we go. This goes. Oh, that's the problem. There we go. So we're just going to have problems with that. This will be using the webcam. All right. That's the problem. There we go. So we're just going to have problems with that. So we'll be using the webcam. Right. That's the problem. There we go. So we're just going to have problems with that. So we'll be using the webcam.
Hi.
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Just trying to work through these camera difficulties real quick, but
Okay.
you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm as ready as I'll be, you know?
Yeah. Like I said, it's gonna be natural about the first 5 minutes into it. Um, it's just talking about you and what you do. So
Oh, I'm good at that.
yeah. So I was also gonna ask, do you want to talk about the Luna Wave Collective too? I kind of dig what you're doing there.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. It's still kind of getting off the ground. We haven't done like any events yet, but it's been a great way to kind of support each other and do art together and do different rituals and ceremonies that help to kind of improve our internal health and mental health. So yeah, I think that'd be great to touch on that for sure.
I think, and that's the really big thing that I think is really important about music, especially, you know, I mean, all music too. I mean, it affects mental health. It helps alter consciousness. Like it helps bring you into a higher frequency. You know what I'm saying? So
Totally.
I think that that's a really important thing. Um, we should touch on.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you try the IV cam? Did it work out for you? Okay.
I did not, but is this okay?
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. It looks
I
pretty
don't know.
clear to me on my end, but
Yeah. My HD camera, whenever I try to use it on Zoom, it's just my laptop. It's an HP Stream. It does what it does decently, but it sometimes has some hiccups. Not a big deal. So
okay.
so that's crazy that Leo. That's weird. Did you
So you're
used
friends with Leo too?
did you used to go to Nation back
Oh
in?
yeah, I was going to discuss that too.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I used to go all the time, man, for Buzz Life with Scott Henry. I went
Hmm.
and saw Planet of the Drums there multiple times. That was great.
Totally.
The couches on the third floor. I want to fill my house with those. They were just great. And
Maybe not after everybody's partied on them, but
yeah, no, well, maybe not. Maybe clean versions of those couches. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just messing with you. Yeah,
Clean
for sure.
I could speak personally that yeah, there was a lot of sweat going on. So that is just is what it was. But yeah, we got about like 15 minutes. Everything seems to
Yeah.
be going all right.
So yeah, I'm going to touch on like frequency and,
I like that.
drum and bass and bass music kind of, they occupy that sub bass frequency and how that frequency improves the circulation, how it helps with relaxation, stimulating the lymphatic system, delivering oxygen to the brain, in addition to dance, and, kind of how my goal and mission is to, uplift the vibration on the planet. So help people to feel good, and, all those kind of play a role with feeling good, right? So
Well,
I think I'm going to touch on that, and then yeah, I can kind of like go into my history of how I became a DJ, how I came about mixing, like, how it kind of fell into my lap. It's not something I really planned on doing. It kind of just happened. And so I'll go into my little story about that. And yeah, I think the questions are good. So if you just want to shoot them at me, I don't have a copy of the questions, but
it's
just
okay. I got a little bit, we're good on that for sure. I got some questions, and I was gonna say, like, that's really cool. It sounds like you and I have the same mission in mind.
yes.
So helping raise the frequency of this planet, and trying to help with the Great Awakening.
Right.
So I mean, that's really, really what I think we're gonna kind of like, really touch on a lot is not just you and your music and what you're doing, but like, how music affects consciousness, how it helps raise frequency,
Totally.
things like
Totally.
that.
Yeah.
So
I
how's it out there in California, by the way?
How's it out here? It's great, man. I love it. Can't complain. I mean, the weather's nice most of the time, and the vibes are cool. I mean, there are some things that I miss about the East Coast, of course. It's definitely super laid back out here, which can be an issue when you haven't had your silverware or your drink at a bar and you're waiting for somebody to come around and serve you. But like besides that, I mean, it's pretty laid back, and it's just overall great vibes. So
I feel that the best decision I ever made was leaving Fairfax County, Virginia. That was the
right.
that was the best decision I ever made in my whole life. I've been in Colorado now for 8 years. So it's pretty similar out here too. It's not probably not like Cali, most definitely, but it's very laid back. People like to, you know, people are more, it's a slower pace for sure than it is back east.
Yeah.
And it's definitely it's cold as shit right now. But it should warm up hopefully here soon in the next couple of days. So I'm just adjusting these camera settings for a second.
Yeah, do whatever you got to do to make it all legit.
Yeah, I put up a little thing on the Rumble live feed as a little video. I'll send it to you if you want when we get done here.
Okay.
So I think that would probably be, you might like that. We'll see what's going on. But I was gonna say, when did you actually leave Northern Virginia?
So that's a really good question. I believe I was about, I want to say it was like around 25 when I left.
Okay.
I should probably know exactly when I left. I'm kind of bad at that stuff. Let me see here. Let me look at my photos here because I could tell by that.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, I think I left, let's see. I think I was around 25 when I left.
Yeah,
So
about the same age. I
approximately.
left also.
Is that when you left? I mean,
Yep.
how old are you?
I'm about to be 35.
Okay,
Coming up in
cool.
May.
Yeah, I'm about to be 38. So, yeah, I think I was like, yeah, I want to say that's about how long around age 25 is when I left, approximately.
Oh, dude, that's cool. You left. What was like a deciding factor in that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So I had a long distance relationship with somebody I met at a show that I was like MC'd at. So I used to MC back in the day when I was fearless on the mic. And I met somebody and we had like a pen pal kind of relationship that went on for several years. And we were just friends and I actually got married and I got divorced, but we stayed friends throughout that. And I ended up moving out there to be with him. But sometimes you don't really know somebody until you move in with them. So there was some, just between me and you, we're not live yet, right?
We are, but nobody's in the room. So
Okay.
I'm keeping track. Yeah, you're fine. Nobody's in the room right now.
Okay. But yeah, anyways, he was a sociopath. So it was a dangerous situation. I had to get out of it. And I ended up staying in Seattle for 3 years and, it ended up being good. But yeah, it just didn't work out. So
I got you. I guess the reason why I left was this, like, so I mean, you know how expensive it is out there, and you know how much of a cluster F it is. I'll try and be nice so YouTube doesn't
yeah,
you
yeah.
know decide to be mean to me like they did the other day. But yeah, I was just really tired of it. I had a troubled past out there on the East Coast myself. I struggled with some things and I felt like I couldn't grow anymore out there is really what it was. Like I felt like I could not, like I felt like, because you know how it is out there. It's like it's very small town vibe
Yeah, it is.
when it comes to certain things, like especially being from Centerville. Um, people, I felt like people just knew me from my past. Like they knew the young fuck up kid who was, stealing tip jars out of Starbucks and things like that. And, the young kid who was just addicted to drugs and wasn't doing anything with his life. And so like, I was kind of like, I'm not in that place in my life anymore. So like, I had to, I had to get out of there. I feel like in order to grow. So
Sure.
that's
Totally.
kind of where I was at with it. I mean, Colorado is a great place. I mean, I really hit it off once I got out here. I went
Different vibe, different energy for sure.
it's most certainly it's like a mountain. It's not, it's different than the Appalachian Mountains, is I guess is like the best way to explain it. Is it's out there they got rednecks. Out here it's like hillbillies. It's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we still have the rednecks down here. I mean, it's still the South, you still got people driving around trucks and stuff, but they got their surfboard in their truck. So, but yeah, I mean, you still get that kind of Southern vibe out here in Cali.
I understand. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine you kind of have it out here a little bit too. Um, you know, it's definitely, it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing. I just really enjoy the atmosphere out here. I mean, it's really nice most of the year too. It's just really cold right now. This is probably the coldest winter we've had in a long time. So,
Sure. Yeah.
but I'm getting notifications that people are getting in the room. So why don't we just start? It's about that time.
All right.
All right, everybody. I would like to really welcome my first music and arts guest here on BG Cast. This is what our podcast is about. Just a little bit of a heads up and a refresher here that we're music, arts, consciousness, spirituality, science, things like that. I know we've been kind of on the consciousness tip lately, but we're going to touch that tonight too. So everybody, I'd really like to welcome drum and bass DJ Nix to my podcast.
Hi, everybody.
Hey guys, so I'm really happy you came on. I'm really excited to have you on. I think this is going to be a really good show. It's amazing how like it's kind of like a small world. We kind of have some of the mutual friends and stuff like that we haven't really exactly met, but so really let's touch on you, Nix. Let's start talking about tell us about yourself. Where are you originally from? I know you're in California right now, but tell us the story of getting there.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I mean, I've lived in 7 different places. So before I got to California, I've kind of hopped around the United States and even internationally. But I was born in Miami, Florida. I lived there till I was 3, and then moved to California, which is where my parents originally met. And I grew up in Northern California in the Bay Area, San Francisco. And then my dad got transferred for work to Virginia on the East Coast. And so I moved to Virginia about age 14. And from there, I went on to school in Philadelphia. And I also lived in Germany. And in addition to that, Seattle and Northern California. And now I'm in San Diego. So I've been kind of all over the place. But I'd say the places that I've lived the longest would probably have to be Virginia and California.
Well, that's pretty cool. You know, as speaking as a fellow East Coaster who has made the trek out west, I can say that it is most certainly one of the best moves I've made with my life. I think you could probably feel the same way about that for yourself as well, especially with the EDM scene being really big out there, I hear. Why don't you tell me about that?
Well, I mean, honestly, there's so many pockets out here. I didn't really realize how much music and how many different scenes and promoters and groups of people there are until I moved out here. So it's very eclectic, and every day I kind of meet new people doing new things in the music community, which is pretty exciting. And I just moved here like 6 years ago, but I've heard stories about the drum and bass scene being pretty raging and huge back in the day. And so as with anything, there's the ebbs and flows of music in the industry. So it's been a wild ride, and I'm always excited to meet new people and get connected to new groups of events and promoters.
That's really cool. You know, I'm a huge drum and bass fan myself. Actually, that's probably my favorite EDM. Actually, you know, it's funny because we didn't even used to call it EDM back in the day. We just we just called it drum and bass. And we were talking before the show started. You know, we used to go to Nation and DC back in the day before it was Capitol Stadium parking lot now, I guess is what it is. And so I guess my question I'm trying to say right now, Nix, is what made you choose drum and bass? Like what attracted you to drum and bass, and what made that the selling point for you to hop on this journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I started my journey in the electronic music scene at a very young age. I think I was like 14 years old when the girl that drove me to school said, "I'm giving you a fake ID and I'm taking you to a rave." So I started going to parties when I was 14 with a fake ID, and started out listening to, that funky disco house like Donald Glad, DJ Dan. And I remember going through the club and passing through the drum bass room and being like, this is crazy. I don't know what to think about this music. It just was really fast, and I seemed a little bit overwhelmed by it. But the more that I heard it, I was like, wait a minute, I kind of like this. And I made some friends in the drum bass room, and I ended up hanging out with them, going to after parties and realizing there's a whole nother world out there besides the house music community. And from there, I kind of got turned on to learning about DJing. So it was kind of like at an after party, and they were like, try it out, try it out. And I did. And one of the guys in the household was moving out. So he was like, you know what, you got some talent, here you go. Here's some old Gemini turntables and like a 6-channel mixer. And I took it and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I didn't really know what to do with it. I actually ended up putting it in my garage. I think it sat there for like several months. And I ended up going to school in Philadelphia for hair. And I remember my dad saying, hey, why don't you take those turntables you got with you? Maybe you can figure out how to use them up there or something. I was like, yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. So I did. I took them with me to Philly, and I actually ended up living right in the alleyway of 611 Records, which is a famous record shop and staple in Philadelphia. And I basically would just go to the record shop and meet people and screen them. And if they seemed cool and safe, then I'd be like, you want to come up and show me how to use these turntables? And so I kind of slowly just started to pick it up. And over the year of being there, I learned quite a bit. And DJ Misbehave, Katie, her and I became pretty close friends. And she actually showed me quite a few tips on the turntables. And we ended up throwing a party together called What She Said. So the first time I played out, it was actually my event. And I ended up mixing These Boots Are Made for Walking with, I can't remember which drum and bass song it was, but it was quite the combo.
What She Said. I dig the name of that. That's kind of funny. I do have to say so myself, but that's clever. I really dig that. So I've noticed, on your profile, you talk about raising the frequency of the planet. It seems like you kind of are on your own little personal spiritual journey yourself. Do you mind delving into that a little bit for us?
Of course, of course. Yeah. So, throughout the years when I was going to events and festivals, I kind of had an awakening experience where I started to realize that not only the music I was playing, but my dance was actually affecting people in a positive way. And I started to feel like, there was a reason I was doing it, that I was on a mission to make people feel good, to uplift the frequency, especially through my dance. And even though I'm a DJ, I'm usually the first one on the dance floor and the last one on the dance floor. And part of my motivation to do that and to dance is to inspire other people to kind of let go, let loose, to feel good. And then the same thing with the bass frequencies that I'm putting out there. In addition to that, that frequency actually helps to change the way we feel. In fact, drum and bass music occupies that sub bass frequency, which is around 75 to 100 hertz. And so if you think about when we were in the womb, like when we were a baby and a fetus, the first sounds that we ever heard were our mother's heartbeat. And so that's in the range about 20 to 500 hertz. So those low frequencies or those sounds actually help to stimulate the brain. And so by stimulating the brain, that helps to relax our mind. It helps to improve circulation. It improves lymphatic circulation, delivers oxygen to the brain. And so all these neural stimulating effects actually help your overall health, not only physically, but mentally. So overall, in a way, I feel like I'm raising the frequency with low frequencies, even though that sounds ironic. But yeah, so that's why I've been so attracted to the sub bass and lower frequencies, just because of the way they make you feel and how they affect people.
Well, I think that's really cool that you actually brought that up, because on my solo show the other day, I brought up a couple of NIH articles that was talking about basically what you just described. I mean, it was talking about how, trance-like states of consciousness that are affected from music actually help you and improve performance in tasks and things like that. And you were just even saying right now, it increases blood flow. It's a natural rhythm that we were in the room and we heard this frequency due to our mother's heartbeat and things like that. And I think that's really great. And I think music plays a really big part in bringing us together and making us kind of like forget our stupid petty differences, and we're all kind of like just sitting there on the dance floor having a great time, whether we're spinning some glow sticks, some poi, or just hanging out. So that's really cool. I really like. So let's talk about your dance a little bit. So what kind of dance did you do to help uplift people?
Yeah, so I guess you could call me a drum and bass stepper. But so when I lived in Philly, I learned, a specific dance, which is using your feet, like footwork, which took a while for me to learn. It was like really persistent at getting it down. And I would go out and I would watch people and I'd ask them, how are you doing that? And I'd practice, practice, practice. And then something just clicked and it became like a rhythm that was addicting. Like I couldn't stop doing it. I wanted to find another party, another event, just so I could do it again, because it just took over my body. And, it's almost like I lose control when I'm on the dance floor. It's like there's this something takes over me that I can't control it. And it's almost like I feel like I'm channeling some positive light energy out into the crowd, which, is, infectious. Other people want to do it. They see it and they're like, wow, okay, I want to move my body. And, over the years, I've noticed, like, if I go into a dance floor and there's like nothing going on, there's not many people dancing, and then I start dancing, I have noticed it. My dance has actually encouraged other people to dance. And I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. Other people are seeing what I'm doing and they're wanting to move. And so, that just kind of brings it all back to like stimulating that circulation, letting go of any stress. So overall, I am a healer, and, I'm an esthetician. So my main career is, healing people through touch, and Reiki. So when I was able to actually affect people on the dance floor in a similar way, it was pretty exciting. And so I have become on a mission now to just uplift the dance floor and get people moving and get people going and helping them to feel good. That's my overall mission on this planet, is to uplift the frequency.
I really dig that, in that you do Reiki now, so you cultivate chi in your own way. I do Qigong. So like I actually did get a Reiki certification level 1 back many years ago, but I haven't really done anything with it, unfortunately. But I think that's really cool how you brought up how when you're on the dance floor, you feel like you're channeling something greater, because you have this purpose within you. You're trying to uplift people. You're trying to make people feel good. That really kind of compares, what's really cool about that is it compares to a lot of actually like tribal indigenous societies. And they felt like that when they were doing their music, because they did a lot of drums. Some of them had crude wind instruments, things like that, but they would feel like they were channeling something of a divine nature. Could you maybe feel like your experience was a little bit like this in your own words?
Totally. And I actually have a good friend, Cassia Red Elk, who actually does jingle dancing at powwows. And I met her at a party and she was doing this footwork thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so similar to my dance. And that's how we connected, was on the dance floor. And, I saw what I saw in myself, I saw in her, which was that undenying love and a drive to spread that positive energy through dance. So I totally relate to that. Totally. And I think many cultures have, this type of method where they go out there and they dance and they actually change the energy or the frequency in a room, which is pretty powerful in itself.
I think that's insanely powerful because, it really, when it comes to, rituals, even like that too, we could even kind of break it down into a ritual. Ritual is a very powerful thing, especially when we're talking about consciousness, vibration, and frequency. And I would even, say that dance in its own right is a type of ritual. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, totally. 100%. 100%. And like I was saying before, when I go out there, I get in this zone and it's like something takes over my body. It's just I don't have control anymore. The music does, and I'm feeling every beat and every sound through my limbs and my body. And it's almost like my body becomes like an instrument, and in a different form. But I mean, yeah, I totally can relate to what you're saying. 100%.
I think that's really cool that you see it that way, and that you kind of like envision it that way. And I think maybe that even adds to, I was listening to some of your latest stuff today, just strictly before this podcast. I've listened to your stuff before, but man, I got to tell you, like, that stuff hit pretty hard. I was digging that. The MC wasn't even that intense at all. So like, I think it was, I think really your sound really reminds me of like the classical D&B. And that's something like that I'm like a huge fan of. And I think we kind of need more of that. I feel like, I'm not saying exactly mainstream drum and bass has taken a little bit of a syndicated approach, but I feel in some ways like, I'm sure Pendulum, I'm sure those guys and stuff. And I feel like, it's not that it's taking a bad turn per se, but I think we need to bring more of that classic old school sound back. What do you think about that?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because like some of the first records that I bought were actually Jump Up, like old school Jump Up. And I
Nice.
didn't even know, like, I mean, I knew it was Jump Up, but I mean, as the years went by, that wasn't like something that was like super big in the areas that I lived, like Virginia, Seattle. It was just a different vibe. And then I moved to Southern California, and the weekly organized grime that was going on down here, that was their thing. They were doing the Jump Up. And I was like, okay, wait, I like this. I haven't had a lot of experience playing it or dancing to it, but I used to like buy Jump Up records like back in the day. And so it was actually pretty exciting for me, because the one thing about that type of genre, those heavy hitting bass lines, is like it's impossible not to get up and move or get excited about it. It's a high energy music. It has, full bass. So you're really feeling that, you're embodying that sound and that vibration, that's a full body experience. And I like all genres, like I really do. I dabble in a lot of different types of genres, subgenres of drum and bass and other genres. But I feel that I'm really drawn towards the bass heavy music. And I think it kind of all goes back to that sub bass frequency, which helps to stimulate those feelings of relaxation, improving, the overall connectivity in the brain, on a totally different level, right?
So I think that's really cool. So I guess one question, being a D&B artist, how do you feel about dubstep?
I love dubstep, and there was actually a big period in my life when I was a dubstep DJ. I mean, I kind of took a break from drum and bass and I just totally dove into dubstep, like those deep dubs, when dubstep was really popping off. And I love Skrillex too, but some of the sounds start to get a little bit more on that vibe, and it was just a little different for me. So I preferred more of like the lower bass kind of frequencies. But so I dabbled in dubstep pretty heavily for a few years, and then I kind of went back to drum and bass, when that dubstep kind of shifted a little bit more to, I guess, a little more of a commercial sound. I don't really know how to explain it, but more recently, I have been diving back into those dubs, and actually I'm going to be playing a dub show coming up in a few weeks. So that will be pretty exciting to kind of jump back into that realm, which I love. That I love dubstep. So, and I love the deep dubs, of course.
Well, that's really cool. So I was actually going to tell you a story. So like I remember when I first heard dubstep. It was actually back in 2008. There was a girl I used to date. Couple people here in the live chat knew her. But she had this CD by Joe Nice, and it was called Grime City. And it was one of the first dubstep albums I think I ever listened to. I think it actually came out back in 2003. And I remember when she was showing it to me, she's like, you got to listen to this because you love drum and bass. You got to listen to this. And I'm like, well, what kind of music is it? And she goes, imagine drum and bass, but just the bass drops. And I was like, okay, cool. So like that actually kind of like turned me on to dubstep a little. I could agree with you. Like some of the mainstream dubstep is a little bit syndicated. That's the term I use. Kind of like I don't, it's commercial, I guess you could say too. It seems like, and as a musician too. So I play guitar. I've kind of been in the music industry for a little bit. I've done some shows myself. A really big question I'd like to ask you as a musician, because you like all music. What do you feel about the current mainstream music situation in the United States today, right now?
Um, well, what do you mean by that question? Because that's a pretty broad question.
So like, like the stuff that's on the radio, stuff that's on MTV or anything like that. Well, I guess MTV doesn't play videos anymore, but
Yeah.
some
I
of the
mean, I think there's always going to be a mainstream everything, depending on the genre and everything. There's always going to be that specific commercial sound that people like or that they use. But I'd say for me, I tend to be more on the underground sound. I like music that's not being blasted everywhere. I like to find those hidden gems, those hidden artists that are really doing amazing things, but need more exposure. And those are the type of artists that I like to play out. but I'm not completely against mainstream music. I mean, there's a time and place for everything, right? But yeah, I'd say I tend to stay more on the underground sound. And you know, I mean, there's always going to be that mainstream scene, right? But at the same time, when I think drum and bass, I think underground, and I think it's always been a little bit underground. Even though there's the mainstream drum and bass, it's still, it's still not as big as other mainstream genres are, right, across the board, and it's always going to be a little bit underground.
I have to agree with you on that completely. So who is the cat, if you don't mind me asking? Was that your
Oh,
cat?
that's Merkaba, which means
Oh,
spirit, light, body.
yep, I know all about the Merkaba. That's pretty cool. That's very. How old is he or she? Is it he or
It's a boy.
boy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very.
he's very special, and I don't know where I'd be without that cat, honestly. He's my emotional support cat. So,
I totally understand that. I'm an animal person myself. I think actually, I feel like animals can some ways be spiritual companions. How do you feel about that?
oh, totally, 100%. Yeah, my one of my best friends passed away a few years ago, and shortly after, I got Merkaba, and so it was just kind of a special bond that I had with my cat that I don't know, I just felt like was kind of connected to her in some way, but that's another story. But yeah, I think that animals are very special, and they're put in our lives for a reason. There's that's why I call him my spirit light body. Because he definitely has been a light in my life. So
So, it's interesting that you brought up the Merkaba. So I'm going to ask, have you read Drunvalo Melchizedek's Flower of Life before?
I have not, but I know what book you're talking about. I haven't read the whole book, but I know what book you're talking about. I
Yeah.
might have it somewhere.
Well, no, I think that's really cool that you named your cat that, because like that's actually like, like a supposedly a hidden practice, when it comes to, consciousness and stuff like that. So I guess one thing I want to touch on that we didn't exactly talk about before, so in the rave scene and a lot of things like that, there's obviously a lot of use of plant medicines and entheogens. And do you feel that, I mean, of course you probably do, but do you feel that these help, I guess you could say, accent or enhance the experience at an EDM show or a rave? Or do you feel like the music itself, in and of itself, can just be a mind cult altering experience altogether?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely science that has proven that psychedelics have been able to kind of open different pathways in the brain. And so, I mean, yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of different variety of things that people do at events. I think some are probably more mind opening than others, but I mean, that's just my opinion. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely 100% for psychedelics. I felt that they've helped open my mind in certain ways. And but yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of influences, and I think the key is just staying healthy and making sure you take care of your body.
I think that's a really good way to put it there, Nix. I was gonna say now, I don't want to pull a Joe Rogan, but have you tried DMT? Have you had the pleasure of actually trying DMT before?
I have I have tried a DMT.
Well, well, since we're on here, I'd like to hear about it. How was that experience?
So I'll be honest with you, I hate the way it tastes. So I think that like the most of the times that I've tried it, I didn't really take enough of it because I just couldn't handle, breathing in the taste. But at one point I did, and I saw some really weird accordion people like going around in a circle. It was really interesting feeling. I know some people that love it. I mean, it's not my favorite thing to do. I just feel, it makes me feel a little weird. But like, yeah, I think it's definitely a cool experience. I've talked to people that have seen other people from other dimensions that have expressed, words of love and light. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting experience for sure.
And I just definitely, I mean, I definitely want to ask you that because no, I am definitely one of those people who had an experience as what you just said before. And I've just kind of been trying to talk to people about their experiences also, just to see if, just try to find the common ground in it, and, try to see if there is really some kind of unification factor to all of it, that, yes, we were all different people, but we're having this similar experience, and
Right.
it's
Right. Yeah.
identical around the board when it comes to that. I mean, I find that pretty interesting indeed. So, let's kind of go back on this for a second. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Luna Wave Collective? I saw that you had this on Instagram. I think that's a really cool thing you're doing. How you're trying to help support other women creators who are trying to get in this game. So, why don't you talk about it a little bit? Let's hear it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason I started the Luna Wave Collective is because I live alone. I moved to San Diego 6 years ago. And to be quite honest, I spend a lot of time in my own world. And I was just like, I need to be connected to other people. Like, and I want to be connected to other like-minded individuals. And, when I lived in Virginia, I did start doing an art night with some of my friends where we would throw a bunch of words in a hat, we would take them all out, and then we had to go home and create an art project, and then we would meet back up and share it. And, in Virginia, you know how it can be, like the closest door to your house could be like 15, 30 minutes away, or even your friends, right? So it kind of helped us to stay connected. And so that was kind of the goal for me, was to just have a connection with other artists and female artists or DJs, and create a safe space where we could not only do art together, but we could also grow emotionally and mentally, and just kind of use my healing practices to help us become more aware and in tune with ourselves and our bodies. So since then, we've done some really awesome rituals, activities, field trips, cooking, DJing, painting, doing art. I mean, we've just had a blast. So ultimately, I would love to kind of take all these women and come together and do an event. But it takes time to get there, and we're all still getting to know each other and come together as a collective. So, it's been kind of like a hit or miss as far as like, is everybody going to show? Well, whatever, it's okay. We got 2 people here at this event, maybe we had 5 people at this event. So we're all just kind of collectively getting together, getting to know each other and having fun. But I mean, ultimately, it is basically just a group to kind of support each other as female artists. So, if you're at an event and you see your Luna Wave babe and you're like, hey, you know what? I don't feel alone. I got my Luna Wave crew here. And so a support system, in the music community, in the music industry, just, being a woman, it's nice to have that backing and have that support where you're there to kind of cheerlead each other on, and just, support each other in that way.
And I got to say, I think that's a really cool thing that, you took it upon yourself, because, you're out there on your own, to actually kind of form your own support system, and kind of, build off those relationships and network with other like-minded people, and I kind of think that's kind of what life's all about. I mean, we got to find our tribe. That's the number one thing, is, finding those people who are resonating at our frequencies, so we can, not only help lift each other up, but help elevate other people's frequencies as well. So I saw you did a cord cutting ceremony. So why don't you walk us through that? Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, a new member, or a potential new member to one of our groups, was going to lead it, but she ended up not doing it, and she wasn't able to perform it for us. So I said, you know what, let's still do it. And so I did some research on it, and we basically thought about some of the things that had been holding us back. And we did a ceremony where we released those, by focusing on a chord, which was supposed to represent any, degrading thoughts, maybe a relationship that wasn't good that we're still attached to, any kind of anything that's like bogging you down, holding you back from your true potential, whether it's lack of self-belief in yourself, just there's so many things that kind of hold us back as individuals. So we imagine that chord to be something that was holding us back, or something that was no longer benefiting us in our life. And we tied that cord around our ankles, nice and tight, so we could feel the tension. And then we did a few chanting. We chanted a few things and focused on that chord, and then we actually cut the chord, and then we threw it away. I mean, you could burn it, but it wasn't, something I wanted to do in my house. But but basically, it was the ideology behind it, and just kind of, you know, creating that physical aspect of what's going on in your mind and releasing it. And I mean, honestly, today I did a lot more things that maybe I wouldn't have done if I didn't do that, because I released some of those thoughts that have been holding me back. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was very successful and enjoyable ritual to do. So.
I think that's a really cool ritual, because I think really it takes the symbolism, us as human beings, when we visually see something that could represent the figurative or the symbolic or the metaphorical or something like that. I've noticed it helps accelerate the process of what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to manifest, and cutting a cord and, getting rid of it and throwing it away, and you infuse that cord with those things you're trying to let go of. I think kind of it sets kind of like a milestone in your consciousness that you have done this physical representation of this emotional and mental act. I think even helps bring that into existence a little bit more. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, and it's when you really put that intention into something, that's when you start to see results, and like when you write something down, or when you really take time to sit down and clear your energy and clear your space and actually put intention into something, say it out loud a few times, that's when it creates more of that imprint in the brain, which then sets you on that trajectory towards change. So change is something that it's inevitable in life, period, right? We're always evolving, we're always changing. And we are basically the director of our own movie. So, when we kind of take time to sit down and say, you know what, I want to go in this direction, and I'm going to put intention into it, and I'm going to do it with 3 other people, then that's a support system where, we see each other later on. And we're like, hey, check in with each other next meeting. How did you feel about that, ritual that we did? Did you feel like it kind of helped you, aspire to do more things that you wanted to, or did it, protect your energy from some of your thoughts? So it's nice to have that support system where we can kind of like follow up with each other, and then also support each other, and then really create that full experience where we can, put those intentions into action.
I think that's, man, you were like speaking my language with that whole ceremony. I think that's really cool. And so when you were chanting, I don't know, I'm pretty sure you've heard the term mantra before.
Mhm.
What mantras were you actually chanting during that whole ceremony, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so basically we were chanting what the chord was, what it meant, and then that we were releasing anything that was holding us back, right? So it was basically saying this chord represents this, and this is what we're getting rid of, or this is what we're releasing, or we release this, right? So it was something that it was personal for everybody, So but yeah, it was just nothing too intricate, but simple.
I really like, I'm asking too, because I'm just, maybe if some people want to try this for themselves. I've done something very similar. I was actually, I don't know if you can see the sigil board behind me, but I definitely, I've practiced around with stuff like that, ceremonial magic, and just kind of like what you're describing just screams that to me. And I think that's, a really cool thing that you're doing to help all of these women creators out there. I think that's badass. I think, that you're helping like unite your own tribe. You're helping like pave the way for all of these accomplishments. And you're not even just, helping from a friendship aspect. You're helping from an emotional and a healing aspect. You're really taking that light worker nature, and you're like spreading that around to everybody else. And I think that's really damn cool. Now, so this is something I've actually wanted to talk to you about. Have you ever thought about doing your music visually? I don't know if you've heard of something called cymatics, but when you play a song or a sound wave through a type of medium, it actually makes this geometry per se. And I actually know a couple of EDM DJs out here trying to find ways to implement this into their shows. Have you maybe thought about doing something like this before?
Um, that's pretty cool. I mean, I would definitely be interested in it. Recently, I haven't been thinking about that. I've had a lot of other things on my mind that I've been trying to accomplish. So that hasn't been a priority on my list, but it's definitely something I'm open to trying. I mean, I wouldn't know where to start with it because I haven't done that before, but I do have some friends that do that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think visualization is actually super important when it comes to a show. Having, it's just kind of having your music line up with visuals is super cool. And had the experience with some of my other friends that do that. And yeah, I mean, it can get pretty intricate. There's so many different levels of these visuals, and how far you can take it, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean, I'd be open to try it.
No,
The
I'm just curious if you've heard of it or not.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. No, I am.
Visual movement.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's definitely a really cool concept. I'm actually kind of like happy to see people starting to like implement that. I think that might kind of like pave way into like even future music festivals and stuff like that. Speaking of festivals, have you ever done one yourself, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, not by myself, but I have helped throw events and festivals. I think I actually did throw one event pretty much on my own, but that was in Pennsylvania, in a warehouse, and I kind of like booked everybody, and I had some help with it too, of course. I mean, it's can't really do a festival all by yourself, but yeah, I mean, I used to be with Slow Kids, and I mean, we did lots of renegades. I mean, that actually was like a renegade DJ before I even started playing out in venues. I was playing out in the woods, on a river, in the middle of DC, in the like, some area where nobody would find us. I mean, and sometimes the cops would find us and they would, tell us to get out of there. But, um, you know, I definitely helped to manifest some, crazy events and barn parties and whatnot back in the day.
Dude, those were when I was younger. The raves in the woods and the raves in the warehouses were always the most absolute bangers. They were the
Yep.
best. You can't really match them. You know what I mean? It's just what I would call, the even just the energy we've been talking about, throughout this whole podcast. I think that is like a supreme conduit right there, is that kind of environment for that kind of energy. So, we won't keep you too much longer here, but a couple things I'd like to say is you know, are you doing any shows here, not just in California coming up? Are you going to be doing some? I know, remember you said you're going to be traveling out this way. Is there maybe like a couple of other areas you're looking at going, or?
I have been asked to play. I mean, I have friends, across the US that would love to have me out for a show. I just haven't really made the time for it. I'm kind of starting up my own business right now, which really requires my full attention and investment. But not to say that I won't in the future, right? So that's definitely an option, and there's lots of opportunities out there for me when I'm ready to take them. I'm sure.
Oh yeah. So what kind of business are you working on?
So I have a cool sculpting business within a doctor's practice. So it's a non-surgical liposuction treatment. So permanently removes fat from the body. And so I would work underneath the supervision of a doctor. And then I also do facial treatments at her office, as well as out of my home and mobily. So I go to people's houses and do facials. So that's kind of my main bread and butter. And that's what pays the bills. And I am passionate about it as well. So I kind of have like, a multifaceted life. one day I'm in the clinic and then the next day I'm at the club. So it's, I live two separate worlds, but it keeps things exciting and interesting. And just trying to keep in that work-life balance, which is, been a challenge over the years, but I'm starting to get a system down, which is really working for me and allowing me to not only express myself creatively, but also focus on my business adventures as well.
That's really cool. I'm sure that keeps life very entertaining for you, to kind of be like, I mean, seriously though, that would be super cool. Like, this podcast right now is like the highlight of my kind of night right now, because, I'm working double shifts all the way up till Thursday, but it's funny too. Cause when I tell a lot of people, I have a podcast, they're like, really? Oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, it's like a surprise to them. So, I mean, it's strange, but but that's really cool that, you're also kind of like investing in health. And I think health is like a very big thing when it comes to, just being more conscious, being more aware, not even feeling in a higher frequency too. And I'm sure you understand that there's definitely a correlation between physical and mental health. And I'm sure you see that in that practice a lot, don't you?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Yeah. And so, when my patients come in, they're like, I want to get rid of this excess volume on my abdomen. We don't just look at them physically. We say, okay, well, what's going on with you internally? And I'll send them to the doctor to have their hormone levels checked, and say, oh, maybe you need hormone replacement therapy. And she does use a lot of natural, therapies like through yams. So, we try to stay more on the holistic side, but we want to really improve people, not just, physically improve them, but help to make them feel good internally too. So, just creating the optimal health for people inside and out, because when you look good, when you feel good. And when you're healthy, you feel good. So, health is definitely a priority. And it's something that we all can work on. Obviously, we live in a toxic world. I mean, the other day I heard that what we eat like a credit card of plastic a month or something because of all the plastic that's in packaging and everything. So, these are all things that we don't even realize how many toxins are out there. So I think just like trying to do your best is key, just trying to treat yourself with love and, treat yourself the way you would treat other people. So yeah.
I think that you put it together so nicely there. And yes, there is a lot of toxic stuff in our world, unfortunately. And that is just it's a shame it's all turned out that way. And the biggest thing I'm not a fan of is fluoride. I
Yep.
still don't. I still do not understand. And actually, even touching on the yams, so the active compound in the yams that actually does the hormone replacement. I'm not sure if you know. I'm sure you probably do, but it's called diisogenin, I believe.
Right.
And it actually is it's almost like a natural form of DHEA. So like DHEA is the main androgen in our body that turns into testosterone or estrogen, depending on which enzyme gets to it first. And I think that's really cool how you're implementing that from a holistic standpoint, as opposed to just, getting the needle out and being like, all right, it's time, for that, for something like that. So, but that's awesome. I'm really glad that you have involved health in your life, as well as music and as well as dancing and as well as sounds like you have a great life. That's just what I'm going to say for sure. It sounds like it's full of a lot of joy and a lot of good things. And, that's really cool. So, couple things before we head out. Got a couple of shout outs. Him. He told me to do this, Christopher Allen Shaw.
Oh yeah. I love
So
back.
I got the pleasure of meeting him. He's a real cool cat. So I went to his kratom shop out here in Denver. I don't personally do kratom anymore. I just the taste and the smell, I can't. It's too much for me anymore. But no, he was cool that and if you got any shout outs you'd like to throw out to anybody while we're on here, we got some people in the chat. You can go ahead.
I mean, so my crew, Team No Sleep, and I mean, if you think about it, Team No Sleep, it's about, not sleeping, meaning being aware, being awake. And, he's starting this frequency fellowship, which is all about what I just talked about raising the frequency and, really focusing on how those frequencies affect you. So a little shout out to my crew, Team No Sleep. And then, my Luna Wave girls, I love them so much. It's just been, it's not easy being a single female in Southern California. So it's been really great to have that support system of women that are always there for me and have my back. So yeah, they've just been incredible. And then my parents, honestly, my parents are the best. I don't know where I would be without them throughout this whole journey. Being a DJ, being a business owner, they've been there for me 100% backing me. And I just can't thank them enough for giving me that support and unconditional love. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. It sounds like you have a lot to be grateful for. And that is an amazing thing. Well, Miss Nix, I'm going to tell you what, you keep on kicking butt, because it sounds like, we're definitely going to be hearing more of you and more from you in the future. I would most definitely love to have you on again sometime soon when you get, when you're kind of done with some of your events and your other shows, and we can chat about that. And, other than that, it was such a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for coming on BG Cast. And, if you hang tight after I end the live feed, I'll get the recording and everything sent to you real quick so you can keep this, okay?
Oh yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I really enjoyed the questions you asked me, because being a DJ is more than just playing music for me. It's more than just getting out those bomb tracks. It's actually about connecting, networking, bringing people together with no judgment, and just spreading that love, because music is love to me, right? So thank you for
Well,
having me.
I totally agree, because being a musician myself, I completely understand that. Well, all right, everybody. Thank you for joining Nix on BG Cast tonight. You all have a wonderful night, and my famous saying, until next time, y'all. I will see you guys.